Feedback. Feedback. Hi, this is Theo Broughton,
And I am Thabiti Mpinda,
inviting you to join us each Monday at 9 a.m. for feedback.
a positive image production by Hood Research.
Encourage others to tune in each Monday on
Comcast Detroit, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, watch WHPR TV Network anywhere.
and take us along with you.
And we're all the way live right here at WHPR, WHPS, right here at 160 Victor Street. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Theo Broughton, co-founder of Hood Research, and my co-host.
Thabiti, and we welcome you to the program.
We thank you so much. And there are just so many things going on. But first, I just want to say good morning to a few people. Thabiti, I got to say good morning to Kirk. He calls us quite often. So good morning to Kirk. Good morning to Rosa and Vera, and to Ron and Barbara, and get well soon, Barbara, and to Harry and Al and Katrina and Rochelle and Carl and Don. That's enough right now, because we have a guest this morning. Go ahead.
And I'd like to give a shout out early happy birthday to Cheryl D, Brother Eugene, Brother Dennis, both Sister Jackies, Ruth Ann, and as I always ask you, have pen and paper handy for information that you want to record and to ask your friends, relatives, neighbors, acquaintances, co-workers to tune in also. And the call-in numbers are at the bottom of the screen.
We got to say good morning to Michael. Michael will get upset if we don't say good morning to Michael. And Jay way on the east side and Les way on the west side. But this morning we have with us, as we have on our conference call that we do on Saturday, Attorney John Little. And I want to thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. There are so many things that are taking place within our community, and foreclosures have been one of them. Now, recently, I have heard that foreclosures have been suspended for a little while, and evictions, that's landlords putting their tenants out, have been suspended for a little while. But we want to let people know a little more about the seriousness of foreclosures, what you may or may not be able to do if you find yourself. Oh, okay. Is that me? Okay. Attorney Little, when a person has missed X amount of payments, do you know how many payments that would be on a mortgage before foreclosure starts? Is it different with different situations?
It is, Theo. So there's
Well, that mic.
is that better? Can you
Right
hear
into
me?
your mic. Yes. Okay, go ahead. Let's try this.
Perfect. Sorry, Theo.
Mhm.
So there are different types of foreclosures. There are mortgage foreclosures, and then there are tax foreclosures. And the process for those two different types of foreclosures is very different.
Okay.
What we talked about Saturday on your show was a recent development in tax foreclosures. But I can speak more generally to foreclosures. And so in a mortgage foreclosure, sorry, apparently my mic.
It's a microphone.
Yeah, Tim's working on it now.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna get it
Oh, he's
anyway.
got to switch it.
I have to turn it up or down or something.
Okay, just.
It's still-
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Perfect. So in a mortgage foreclosure situation, someone is being alleged to have failed to pay their mortgage payment or otherwise committed some act that's considered a default under the mortgage. And if that default, failure to pay, for example, isn't corrected, what we call cured, then the mortgage company can instigate foreclosure proceedings, and they can do that in court, or there's a statute that allows them to do that by advertisement, where they simply give you notice that they're foreclosing, post that notice in the newspaper, and then hold a sheriff's sale to sell your property.
Now, can I stop you right there? When you say posted in the newspaper, is that the regular newspaper, News Free Press, et cetera, or is it the legal news only?
So generally, they post it in the legal news only, but the statute requires that they post it in a paper that's in the community where the property is located. So.
Okay, so the legal news could be,
Yeah, in reality, nobody gets their information from the paper. And so if the only way that they're going to learn of a mortgage foreclosure is through a posting in a newspaper, that's never going to happen. It's not useful. The statute also requires that they get sent notice, mailed notice.
Okay.
And if there is also a requirement that they go to the property and try to contact the homeowner and advise them that they're in foreclosure. But often people aren't home, they're busy working. And in those circumstances, they post something on the property. The foreclosure process for taxes is not too dissimilar, where there's an allegation that a party is defaulted by failing to pay their property taxes. And it varies from state to state, but in the state of Michigan, after 3 years, a foreclosing governmental unit, which is often the county treasurer, can instigate a tax foreclosure by filing a lawsuit in the circuit court where the property is located. And like with mortgage foreclosures, they have an obligation to notify the homeowner that they're in foreclosure proceedings. But Carrie Boylan and I have represented a lot of homeowners, business owners, who never actually knew that they were about to lose their property in a tax foreclosure. And so we met in the courts fighting foreclosing entities like treasurers, arguing that homeowners should be able to pay these back taxes that they owed. You know, we've never argued that they don't owe the taxes, but that they should be able to pay those taxes and keep their home. You know, in a mortgage foreclosure, you owe the mortgage company a lot of money, generally speaking, for your house. And when they foreclose, and if they do it by advertisement and they sell it at an auction, the difference between what you owed the bank and what the property sells for at the auction goes to the homeowner. We call those surplus funds.
okay.
But under the laws of Michigan, something we call the General Property Tax Act, when a treasurer forecloses on your property for taxes and then sells it at an auction, they get to keep the surplus funds.
Wow.
That's amazing. That is-
It's really
That's-
astonishing.
Did you just? So, oh wow. So they can have a starting salary, starting price as high as they want.
No, they set the minimum bid for the amount owed on the taxes. And,
Oh,
and
okay.
taxes, it really includes penalties and interest at a high rate and,
Oh, okay.
and fees and things like that. But,
okay.
you know, when you're losing your house in a tax foreclosure, it means there's no mortgage company there to step in and pay those taxes, because the mortgage company would never allow themselves to lose those surplus funds.
So these are properties that are free and clear. I mean,
That's
they're
exactly
paid
right.
off. Oh,
That's
okay.
exactly right. That's what makes
Oh,
it so
wow.
incredibly heartbreaking, is that you're talking
Right.
about people who are in financial difficulty, whose biggest asset is their home, and not only are they losing the place where they live, oftentimes where they've raised their family,
Right.
they're losing all of the equity in that property.
Oh wow.
And recently, our Michigan Supreme Court issued an opinion on a case known as Raffaelli LLC versus Oakland County Treasurer. And in that decision, the court said that it was unconstitutional for these treasurers or the foreclosing governmental units to keep those surplus funds. So Carrie and I have been doing everything we can, Attorney Carrie Boylan and I have been doing everything that we can to try to get the word out that under this change or this interpretation of the law,
Right.
this finding by our Supreme Court that the current law is unconstitutional as written, is an opportunity for a lot of homeowners, not just who lost their property last year, but going back years,
Okay.
have to try to get some compensation for the lost equity.
Right.
Now, when you say going back years, how far back is that?
The statute of limitations or anything?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's a great question, and of course, because this is a developing area, this Raffaelli versus Oakland County Treasurer, it really has opened up a door that we don't know how far back it will go. But
Wow.
in my opinion, based on my understanding of the court's opinion, they're basically treating this taking by the treasurers of homeowners' surplus funds like an inverse condemnation case. And so, in the ordinary course of things, if the government wants your property, they file a lawsuit to take it. And we
Eminent domain?
That's exactly right. And you go through a process, and you get what's called just compensation for your property.
Okay.
But there are times when the government takes your property and they don't instigate a legal proceeding.
Oh,
And when they do that, we call that inverse condemnation.
okay.
And so in Michigan, I think at a minimum, and I don't want this to be construed by your viewers or your listeners as a limitation, because that hasn't been established in my opinion. But I would say that anybody who lost their property in a tax foreclosure from 2015 forward may be eligible for compensation for their lost equity or their lost surplus funds.
Okay. So a minimum of 5 years, and we don't know what else may come about.
That's my opinion.
I see. Oh, okay. Do you have a question?
I just want to be clear now. The mortgage company, as it stands, prior to this decision with Raphael, would give any surplus. I don't know if that's seen in the same way. It's not seen in the same way as equity, I'm sure. But once the debt is settled with the mortgage company, everything over that amount will go to the prior homeowner, since they're losing the property anyway. But with the treasurer's office, anything in excess of taking care of that debt actually stays with the treasurer. You know, I mean, it just seems like robbery without a gun. So now with this case with Raphael, they're trying to, I guess, in some way compensate the individual, because as you said, and it is heartbreaking, the individual has paid for a home, free and clear, so the only debt they really have is the taxes, and to lose that, and we've had an issue now with, I guess, the overassessment of properties in the city of Detroit anyway, where people have lost their homes due to an inflated tax assessment, which they weren't able to pay. But I just want to be clear on that. The mortgage company does return any funds in excess, and the treasurer, at least up to this point, was able to keep all the funds.
Yeah, and you said a lot there that was very true, and I'll try to unpack some of it. So you're right. In a mortgage foreclosure situation where there are surplus funds, and surplus funds being the difference between what you owed the mortgage company and what it sold for at an auction, would be due to the homeowner if they demand them. So the statute's written in a way where the homeowner has to actually make an effort to get them.
Okay.
But they're entitled to them, which is an important right.
You mean from the treasurer?
No, from the lender, from a bank.
Oh,
so in a
from the bank,
mortgage
okay.
foreclosure situation, the homeowner is entitled to the surplus funds from the mortgage company. But I didn't want people to think that in that set of circumstances they didn't have to do anything to get that money. They still have to take steps.
Right, okay.
Right? And if you're going through a foreclosure process of any kind, you should contact an attorney so you know what your rights are. But you're exactly right. In the context of foreclosing for property taxes, under the General Property Tax Act, the Michigan law, the treasurers or the foreclosing governmental unit, which is often the treasurer, got a windfall. And so an example would be this case that came down recently is called Raffaelli LLC versus Oakland County Treasurer, commonly known as that. And
Amazing.
in that case, one of the property owners owed just over $8 in unpaid taxes that were made it subject to tax foreclosure.
Foreclosure?
Yeah.
$8?
That's right. And then it sold for tens of thousands of dollars at the auction. And the treasurer got to keep those surplus funds. Likewise,
A windfall.
a huge windfall that when you look at it in the aggregate is very disturbing. So in 2019, just in Oakland County, the treasurer was able to keep, in terms of surplus funds, something in the neighborhood of about $3 million. That's one county in this state in 1 year.
Oh,
So there are 80-plus counties in the state of Michigan.
Yes,
There are tax
80.
foreclosures every year. The number of people that have lost all of their equity in their properties is astounding, staggering.
and this, it has been happening in multiple counties.
As far as I know, and I have to admit that, you know, I don't practice in every county in Michigan, but
Right,
Carrie and I have defended cases as far as Iron Mountain in the Upper Peninsula. So we have been all over this state defending these types of cases. As I understand it, there's not a single county in the state of Michigan that has ever returned surplus funds.
Well, you know, there was a treasurer once upon a time, and his name was Watovich. And Watovich walked around his office in house shoes. And Watovich was there for, they tell me, 39 years. So they've been collecting excess funds, and I say that because it was reported that he gave himself a bonus. This was a few years ago. He's no longer the treasurer. But from what you have explained to us, he should not mind whether he's treasurer from now on or not, because if you give yourself a bonus each year, out of all of the thousands of dollars that you're able to keep as surplus, that's a nice bonus.
Yeah, and you know, the other side of that coin is also disturbing. Again, these are homeowners who really their only asset is this house. You know, the reason they're in tax foreclosure is because they can't make tax payments timely. You know, so they're losing their properties for a few $1,000s when they have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity in those properties. And so it's an enormous injustice
Yes.
that our Supreme Court has started the process, I hope, of making better, of helping.
Now, is there any indication of what those funds, like you say in the case of Oakland County, they had maybe $3 million plus, or what those funds are going towards, since it's in excess or whatever the budget is for that treasurer's office anyway? Is there any idea what happens to those funds? And it would seem also that, you know, if they had any type of heart, let's just say, and particularly when you mention $8, that's just I mean, I could collect that many bottles if I, you know, just rummage through something, you know, to be able to pay it. And for them to be able to, if they sell something for tens of thousands of dollars and they've satisfied the $8 debt, what happens? Is there any idea what happens to those funds?
There is. So what happens to those funds is directed by the General Property Tax Act. So all of the things that the foreclosing governmental entities or treasurers are doing, they're all things that are contemplated by Michigan law. So they're following the General Property Tax Act. But in my opinion, that doesn't make it right. And obviously, according to our Supreme Court, it also didn't make it constitutional. But so that money goes into a general fund, and then how the money gets used, you know, is anybody's guess.
Yeah, who controls the purse strings
Yeah.
at that point?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, my understanding that in Wayne County, the treasurer has his own general fund. It doesn't go into Wayne County's general fund. But in the meantime, where the city has assessed property over the value, it has increased the property tax that has to be paid. And of course, the property tax is to be paid to the city. But when that is not done, the county steps up and said, hey, we will pay the property tax, just turn the property over to us. And that's what has been done here in the city of Detroit. And I know nobody's considering this possibility, but it just seems to me that if the county has all these excess funds, they should be able to return some of that money to the city and let the city reimburse the taxpayers for the overassessment. Now, I don't expect that to be done, but it just seems like that would be the right thing to do.
So you've got that right, that when you fail to pay your property taxes to the local municipality, for example, the city of Detroit, then after a period of time, the Wayne County treasurer steps in as the collector of those taxes. And it'll be generally the Wayne County treasurer that actually forecloses on the property. And it also leads us to another area that's really unfortunate, where the county will foreclose on a property for unpaid taxes.
Yes.
And then the state of Michigan and the local municipality have the option to take that property from the Wayne County treasurer in exchange for the amount of taxes that are owed. So in those circumstances, what you'll see is a property in the city of Detroit that's foreclosed for unpaid taxes. And that can be just a few dollars because somebody wrote a check for the wrong amount or didn't realize they owed $8 and some odd cents in unpaid taxes. And after the treasurer turns that property over to the city of Detroit, for example, there are no surplus funds.
Wow.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Walk me through that again.
Yeah.
The county buys the property from the city to satisfy the unpaid taxes to the city.
So,
Then, well, go ahead.
so the treasurer actually holds an auction to sell the properties,
Oh, okay.
right? So the treasurer doesn't buy the properties. The treasurer acts as a tax
A
collector.
collector.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And if they don't get the taxes, then they sell the property. They file a lawsuit, and then they sell after they've foreclosed on the property, which under the act happens the same time every year. And there's virtually no redemption period, like in a mortgage foreclosure.
Oh, wow.
After the foreclosure, you've got 6 months generally to come back and get your property. That's not true in a tax foreclosure.
Oh,
So after they've foreclosed, then they set it for an auction, generally in August, and sometimes there's multiple auctions.
Wow.
In any event, before the auction, the state of Michigan can come in and say, actually, we want to take that property. They have the right, an option, to come in and take the property and pay the treasurer the amount of back due taxes that are owed to the city.
okay.
And the state of Michigan almost never does that. They do it occasionally if they've got some public purpose that they want to use that property for.
Okay.
But they're not coming in and taking individual homes very often, if at all. Whereas the local municipalities, quite often, they'll come in and exercise their right to take the property. And what they have to do is pay the treasurer the amount of unpaid taxes.
So they're buying it back.
So
In other
the
words.
city is getting the property located in their community for pennies on the dollar. And because there's no auction, there's no surplus funds. So you don't have a private investor coming in and paying $25,000 for your property. The city of Detroit's paying $3,000 or $4,000 in the unpaid taxes and getting it. So
Wow.
now you have homeowners and business owners who not only lose their property, but under Raffaelli, this new case, may very well not be able to get any compensation, any surplus funds, because the government's going to argue they don't exist.
Wow. That's so smooth, shall we say.
It is, and
Wow.
the Supreme Court, our Supreme Court, in the Raffaelli decision, it was basically a unanimous decision in result, meaning they all agreed that the taking was unconstitutional. But one of the judges, Justice Viviano, wrote a concurring opinion. And in his concurring opinion, I think he correctly argued that really what homeowners lose is the equity in their property, not these surplus funds. Because not everybody has surplus funds, but everybody had equity.
Wow. Ooh, that is something, you know? And I hear people say, I'm not going to vote. My vote doesn't count. What you have just explained also lets you know how important and how valuable your vote is, because you need to have people in place, like the judge you just mentioned, who gave a analysis of the situation, and when you take the time and take the opportunity to learn about the people who are vying for the various offices to represent you, you want to have people like that judge who will be on the side of right. We don't have enough people on the side of right, and that's amazing. That is truly amazing.
Just for the moment, I want to remind our callers that the call-in numbers here, because you, if not your own personal experience, may know someone who has dealt with tax foreclosure or mortgage foreclosure. The numbers here are area code 313-868-0342, 868-0351, and 868-4336. Now, a question I have is, with this case of Raffaelli LLC versus Oakland County, and you were saying that they may go back as far as 2015. So now there are a lot of people, other than those who are watching the show, who may not be aware of the fact that they may be able to, in some way, open up some sort of case or something where they can get it. But this is not well publicized either. So how do we, and I'm sure, and I don't know, I'm not going to say I'm sure, that the entities involved are not necessarily publicizing the fact that people do have an opportunity to try to retrieve some sort of redress of whatever they've lost. So is this, because had you not been here with us, I would not have known about this. But is there any way that people can be made aware of the fact that there are perhaps retrievable funds, particularly if they fall within that 2015 to the current year status, or is it just word of mouth?
So it's a great question, and it's one that Attorney Kerry Boylan and I have been talking about a lot, because we want to get the word out, and that's why I'm immensely grateful to be here today with you both. And I was grateful to be with Theo on Saturday. There is some coverage of this issue, but because it's so complex, the coverage I don't think is sufficient, and I don't think it's terribly helpful. And so Kerry and I have committed to offering anybody who wants to talk about their foreclosure a free phone consultation. So they can call Attorney Kerry Boylan or Attorney John Little, and we'd be happy to talk to them about it. I think right now there's a lot of things going on behind closed doors. It's my understanding that the treasurers are very concerned about how much money this may cost them. And so they're working with the legislature to figure out a way to mitigate that or to protect the counties. I've heard it said by representatives of the counties that there's not enough money to pay everybody all the money that they've taken. So again, Attorney Kerry Boylan and I have already filed lawsuits trying to collect funds, compensation for people who've lost their property. But I certainly don't hear too much about it from our elected officials, except in sound bites that they're using against other candidates in their elections. I haven't seen anybody, propose something that would help homeowners. What I propose is that before the legislature or anybody else has an opportunity to take away more of homeowners' rights, that they contact an attorney and they file a lawsuit and they fight for their compensation. And another thing that Carrie and I are doing is we're willing to take those kinds of cases on a contingency basis, so that homeowners who've already suffered don't have to put out funds in order to file a lawsuit. As everybody knows, it's a litigation. Filing a lawsuit is very expensive. So, but we're going to start trying to get out more information by mailings, through the internet, and hopefully be able to participate and come back and speak to you more and help your listeners and viewers understand what's going on.
Sure.
You know, what's interesting is, just to follow up on that question, is that you said that the treasurers have a certain fear if people, acquire this knowledge. But, what I'm doing when I say that is that, like you said, the money would go perhaps to a general fund. So now each one of these county treasurers has an operating budget, and generally you work within whatever your budget is. So it seems that those funds will still be surplus to whatever their operating budget was. So for them to have this fear that, oh no, we're going to have a landslide of people coming in trying to, retrieve funds that they may be legally eligible for, it doesn't seem to jibe with me that if you've only got $100,000 to run your office, then anything you get in excess of that it would seem that it would remain. I don't know if it would be in a bank, like you say, general fund or whatever, but it would just seem that those funds would still always be there because you're still working within your operating budget, unless you just decide you want to get a new cherry or mahogany desk or something like that. You go to the general fund and get. I mean, I don't know. It just seems.
What about the bonus? Don't forget the bonus.
Yeah, I think
They
Theo's
give
right. I
themselves-
think all of these entities find a way to spend the money. So the phrase surplus funds is a bit of a misnomer, and then in addition, we're not talking about just this year's, and I've suggested to you that homeowners who've lost their property since 2015 forward should contact us, but it may be that homeowners before that are entitled to funds, entitled to compensation. And so the treasurer's perspective is, we run pretty tight budgets. We don't have the money laying around to pay all of these. And Carrie and I have told our clients that at this point, while we don't think that's a legitimate argument, we do want to be first in line.
Now, the next question for me is, talk about the difference in what's best when you talk about class action lawsuit or individual lawsuit, since we're talking about the same setup, foreclosures, residents in the same county. So is starting a class action lawsuit beneficial or costly? Could you lose more by going to class action in this particular instance?
So that's really an excellent question, Theo. And there are pending, at least one, maybe many, I'm not sure, pending lawsuits now that would like to be certified as a class action. And class actions certainly are useful in a lot of ways. And I don't have any desire to diminish the value of a class action or of any attorney's efforts to fight on behalf of property owners. In fact, I welcome every attorney who wants to fight for a property owner because property owners need their help. The clients that have retained Attorney Carrie Boylan and I essentially want to make sure that their loss is compensated. They want a lawsuit that's about their facts,
Okay.
about the foreclosure of their property. Whereas a class action has a few people that are representative of a whole much larger body of people. And what I would say to homeowners who are contemplating contacting an attorney is, one of the most important questions you should ask is, what is this going to cost me? What's the fee associated with it? And then use your own common sense and experience. I just recently got a notice that there was a settlement in a class action against Google, and they informed me that I could be entitled up to $12.
$12. Google?
So I didn't submit an application for that, but my suspicion is that the attorneys in that class action got paid more than $12. Whereas any of the clients that Attorney Carrie Boylan and I are going to represent, they're going to see the lion's share of their proceeds. Even if they do it on a contingency, they're still going to see the lion's share of their proceeds, of their compensation.
Now, I was going to ask you to give our viewers and listeners contact information for yourself and your co-attorney.
I knew you were going to ask that.
Yeah, we want everyone to know.
And I promised Carrie that this time I would have the numbers and I would know them, but that's never going to be true. I'm never going to remember phone numbers. So Attorney Carrie Boylan has what I always tease her, a very recognizable, very easy to remember phone number of 855 Boylan, which is her last name, which is spelled Boylan.
Okay.
Now
Attorney Carrie Boylan.
Now that's only 6 numbers, right?
Did I?
B-O-Y-L-A-N.
B-O-Y is 3, L-A-N is 3, 3
Right.
plus 3 is 6.
Yeah, no.
So Gary Boylan's number is 855-926-9526.
Repeat that again, please.
Sure. 855-926-9526.
526, okay.
It's 9 Boylan.
And that's what Carrie gets for not being here today. So.
That's right.
And my name is Attorney John Little, and my phone number is 248-809-1402. Attorney John Little at 248-809-1402. And, that's for a free consultation. So they can call either Carrie or I, and they're under no obligations to hire us. We'll talk to them about the facts involved in their foreclosure and may or may not be able to help them. But at a minimum, we'll be able to give them, based on our years of experience in fighting these foreclosures, what we think are their best available options.
And also, you can Google John Little.
That's what I do.
Did you know that? Most people don't know their own phone number because they don't call themselves.
One of the things I like to ask, just for the benefit of the audience, what type of information, when they call your office or Carrie's, what type of information should they have handy to be able to, because you don't want people going scrambling looking for papers, this, that, and the other during the course of a conversation. They may not be that handy at that point. So what kind of information should they be able to provide you or Attorney Boylan?
That is a great question because just recently, last week, I had someone call me about 6 properties they owned in the city of Detroit that they had lost in foreclosure. And when we started talking about it, because you're talking about 6 properties and some of them had been foreclosed many years ago, the caller didn't know the addresses, for example. And so when they call, I would suggest to have as much information about their property and the foreclosure of their property as possible. But at a minimum, it would be helpful to have the property address and the tax ID. Because with that information, we can look up a lot of the details on public records. If they have more information about, when it was foreclosed, how much they owed in taxes and penalties and interest, if they know how much it sold for at auction, if they have any of the documentation from the foreclosure, all of that would be helpful. So what I would recommend is they collect everything that they've got before they call, because Carrie and I are going to be asking them a lot of questions to try to get to the heart of what we can do for them.
Now, the tax ID number is in addition to the, what they call the parcel number?
So
Or
that's,
is that-
those are basically the same thing. They're used synonymously. So the tax ID or the parcel number, it's essentially the number that gets associated with your taxes,
I see, okay.
your property taxes.
Oh, okay.
But it's a unique identifier for each property. And so, you can get a lot of property addresses that look very similar, street versus drive versus road. But with the tax ID, it's going to be unique, and it'll make finding public records related to your foreclosure a little easier.
Oh, okay.
But the truth of the matter is, if you have the address, give us a call.
Yeah.
Now, would this include vacant lots as well?
Absolutely, yep. So any real property, so distinguishing real property from personal property is, this microphone is personal property, and this building and the lot that it sits on is real property. And all of this relates to the foreclosure of real property. But whether it was a business that you owned, or whether it was the house that you raised your kids in, if it was taken in a tax foreclosure, you may have rights to compensation.
Okay. Now, there's a property, it's a building, and what's interesting about it is it sits on the corner, and if you're on one side, there's an address, and if you're around the corner, there's another address. Now, is that something that's a little illegal is being done, or it's the same building, not two buildings glued together, same brick and mortar, okay, but two addresses. I've often wondered, why did that exist like that?
Yeah. So when you practice in the area of property like I have for so many years, you find out there are so many interesting, funny, odd things that go on in the division of land. And so it's not uncommon to see a property that's on a corner that has multiple lots, multiple addresses, multiple tax ID numbers. And so
Multiple tax ID numbers.
Sure, absolutely. Because when you're looking at the land, it may appear to the naked eye as one lot with one building on it. It might be three lots with only one building.
Interesting.
Yeah, I do know of one of those too. There's a restaurant, as a matter of fact, and it sits on three lots, or a little bit of it, I guess, sits on the third lot, and I guess that part is used for parking. That's the property that was claimed for taxes. So I guess this part could avoid taxing or something. Really weird. Anyway, it's a vacant.
You know what happens
vacant building.
sometimes, Theo, in those situations is that folks buy property and they're not very familiar with property law, and so they don't realize that they're not paying taxes on one of the lots they own. You know, they're paying taxes because they're getting a tax bill for the property where they have a building,
Okay.
right? We call that an improved lot. But they don't know that they're not paying taxes on other lots
Okay.
that are vacant.
That's interesting.
You know,
Attached
they're
to-
not
to-
getting the tax bill in the mail. They
Right.
don't realize it's not being paid.
Oh, wow.
And I had a case years ago where the business owner found out that he had lost one of the vacant lots associated with his business address in a tax foreclosure when he went to sell it. So he went and contacted an agent, said, I want to sell this lot. I'm not using it for parking. It's worth a considerable amount of money. Let's sell it. And the agent said to him, you don't own it.
Oh, wow.
Now that strikes me as interesting because, as you say, they may not even receive a tax bill, so they're totally unaware of the fact that they owe on that property. How does that happen? Because it would seem that whoever's in the office who issues these, let's say documents saying that you owe X amount of dollars on this specific piece of property, it would seem that that's their job to do that. Now, how does that just
Yeah.
go unchecked?
Because of the massive amount of paperwork that gets filed with the cities and the counties relative to real property, and
Wow.
because the people that are filing that paperwork make mistakes, and so things don't get identified correctly when you record your deed or when you file your property transfer affidavit. The right information isn't getting to the right person, and unfortunately, it happens quite a lot. I mean, it's a big source of what I do.
Well, and you know what's interesting about that, just following up, is that that's a loss of revenue. If you don't contact the property owner and let them know that they have a pending bill, then that's a loss of revenue for the treasurer's office to be able not to acknowledge that. So it's just like me having 5 houses on a street, and I don't happen to acknowledge the one in particular, so I end up losing that. But I could have made money off of that, because that's what, the whole purpose of it is, to make money. So what I do is I allow it, by default, to go into foreclosure. I, the owner, don't have no idea of that, because I've heard of this happening on, various occasions, for different properties, whether they business or residential. But it's a loss of revenue. I don't understand, how do you not look for every source of revenue that you can get, that the city or the county or whoever is entitled to? That just, it's not rational in my mind.
Well, I will say in defense of the foreclosing entities, and again, largely the treasurers, they really make an effort to contact property owners and let them know that they owe back taxes, unpaid taxes, delinquent taxes. But you're right, it happens a lot where there's, for whatever reason, a break in the chain of communication. And so people lose their property without even knowing that it's subject to foreclosure.
Wow.
And I will say that the law is drafted in a way, and of course this recent case has changed some of this, but the law prior to this recent case was drafted in a way and construed in a way where there was a pretty sizable benefit to the foreclosing entities to let the taxes go unpaid, because they charged an enormous, outrageous interest rate, and then they get to keep all of the surplus funds. So, in some ways, and you could look at that as a pretty profitable investment.
Wow.
Almost scandalous in my opinion, but then that's just my own opinion.
Yeah, but it makes me wonder about this restaurant, because I got a chance to go and see the restaurant. I mean, I was with someone else who was looking to buy property, and it had a big fireplace, a seating area, and the stone around the fireplace had been imported from Italy. It was a beautiful place. I don't know if, I guess they finally sold it, but it was really a beautiful place to be sitting on 3 lots. And that's what's interesting to me, is how the addresses get squiggled around. Sometimes use one, not the other,
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there are a lot of people that lose vacant land for that exact reason.
Oh.
Yeah, because
Addresses.
the tax bills aren't coming to the main building for the business, or the homeowner who's living in a home as their primary residence, but have vacant lots next to them. They're not getting a separate tax bill
For the
those
lot.
lots
Oh,
because of
yeah.
some malfeasance somewhere along the line in their purchase and recording of documents. And when they go to sell that lot, or they go to improve that lot, or recently I had someone who just got a letter from the person who bought it at auction, said, "Hey, I own this lot, I want your fence moved."
Oh, whoa. Well, what about a lot that's owned by I don't know, grandparents or something, next to the property, and they die, and the children or grandchildren, whomever, don't know about it. Now, the employees responsible to find or post whatever information, so that if there are any heirs, the heirs might possibly read about it in the paper or something.
Yeah, another great question, and there is a process so that
Okay.
when the treasurers are foreclosing, they're supposed to go back to public records to figure out who are the interested parties who deserve notice of the foreclosure. And so there is a process where they would hopefully be able to find you. But it's been my experience that the process is largely truncated and
Oh, wow.
provided by third-party private companies, and
They move on.
they try to meet the standard, but the Constitution, as it's been interpreted, requires these foreclosing entities to act as if they're actually interested in letting the homeowners know. And,
right.
it's been my opinion, and I've argued this many times, that if you look at any of the processes followed by the foreclosing governmental units, they're not emblematic or reflective of someone who has a genuine
It's-
desire to get the homeowner their property back.
My 8 hours and I'm gone home. What?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
I'm glad that this part of the conversation came up because I have a relative who owns a property, free and clear, so all they do is pay property taxes, but they also bought the adjoining lot. Now, personally, I don't know, but because of this conversation we're having, I'm going to make a point to ask, do they receive a separate tax bill for the lot as well as, for the residential property itself? Because although it's adjoining and it's owned by the same person, you're not necessarily going to get a tax bill for both the property and the vacant lot. Would I be correct in assuming that?
So if you file the appropriate documents with the municipality and with the county, you should get tax bills for both lots. Each one of those parcels, the improved parcel that has a home on it and the vacant lot that's, both of those should have a unique tax identification number or parcel number, and your family members should be getting two bills, a bill for their home and a bill for that vacant lot. But it goes to the heart of it, which is that, not everybody's a property tax lawyer like me.
Right, right.
Right.
And this stuff is complicated, and the folks that are helping them with the purchase of these things need to do a better job explaining. And that's why Carrie and I have a lot of clients that even when they're just buying a home or buying a lot, they involve an attorney like me and Carrie to make sure that all of those things are done correctly, so that they're getting all of the bills that they're supposed to, and they understand all of their rights.
And what triggered that thought was just the fact that you said that sometimes a person can say, look, I bought that lot that you have, even though they still own the residential property. And that right there just stirred me a little bit. It's like, wow, I better, kind of keep this.
And for this poor homeowner, it was even worse because the letter basically said, I own this lot, and I want your fence off my property.
Yeah, right.
And this relative
Ooh.
does have a fence around that lot as well.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm not just thinking about it. Oh my goodness. And then a lot next door would have an address, right?
Right.
But the
Sure.
home is gone, so you may not even know what the address was or is or should be.
Right. So oftentimes unimproved property like vacant lots, there isn't an address like you would have at your home where there's a number and a street. It's vacant land on this street, and it's identified mostly by the property
Parcel number.
parcel number. Yeah.
It'd be nice if they add the oh my goodness, if they were to add that address, the property to the address of the homeowner.
And there is a process to do that.
Oh, they
Oh,
could
okay,
do that.
wow.
Oh, well, good to know.
Great.
Well, we are at the point, the top of the hour break, where we have to ID the station. So we will take pause here and ask you to stay tuned, and we will be back momentarily. Hi, this is Theo Broughton, president of Barton McFarland Neighborhood Association. Someone asked me, what is a census? A census is a project put on by the federal government to determine the number of people living in any particular municipality. You count, we count, and it's time for us to be counted so that we can receive the allocation of federal tax dollars that we have sent to Washington, D.C. over the past 10 years. Those tax dollars are to be used for education, for health, and perhaps there will be some money even for us to fix the damn roads. If you have not found your mailer, please know that you can call the Federal Census Bureau at 1-844-330-2020. Again, that's 1-844-330-2020 for all of the help you will need. Peace.
This is Bruce Simpson, your City of Detroit Ombudsman. I am here to address all of your complaints and concerns. If you need assistance regarding city services, please contact my office at 313-224-6000 or contact us via email at ombudsman@detroitmi.gov. This is Bruce Simpson, your City of Detroit Ombudsman.
To be able to meet people from different countries enriches our lives.
Wayne County gave me so much, my degree, who I am.
The college supports you to grow. They have the different campuses. I'm like, I can try this. Maklit Shunga, Ethiopia. Sandra Gonzalez, Mexico.
Arminalda Carrick, Bosnia.
Javed Khan, Bangladesh. Go to Wayne County. They will find your path and you will know what to do next.
Hi, this is LaWanda.
This is RJ Watkins.
Coming to you to bring you some information about the #1 detox in the nation, Lemon Burn. Lemon Burn helps to turn the fat into fit. It's for you, a happier, healthier you. Because you know healthy is the new beautiful. An all-natural way to improve your health. It promotes a healthy digestive system, attacks and reduces belly fat, as well as gives you energy. Need to get yours today. Call 313-868-6612.
Don't forget to exercise and eat right.
The census doesn't matter. I don't see the impact.
Actually, Michigan gets $3,000 per person per year for 10 years to help fund schools, community food assistance, Medicaid, and more.
All right, I'll do it.
I'm kind of worried about my privacy.
The census is for everyone, but your data is not. Your answers to 9 basic questions will not be shared.
All right, I'm gonna do it.
Cool. Be counted today. Visit my2020census.gov.
You're watching Detroit's own WHPR TV. Detroit Live.
This is Theo Broughton from Feedback. You can watch me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at WHPR TV Now app. Download our free app at WHPR TV Now.
Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern.
I've always been a runner, but I've never run from anything, and neither has my city.
Do you want to be a Detroit police officer?
Sir, yes, sir! Up!
Amen!
It's something special to protect the people closest to you, the ones you've known all your life, your neighbors, your friends. I was born in this city, and I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. That's why I wear the shield.
You're watching WHPS, Highland Park, Detroit.
Feedback. Hi, this is Theo Broughton.
And I am Thabiti Mpinga.
Inviting you to join us each Monday at 9 a.m. for Feedback.
A positive image production by Hood Research.
Encourage others to tune in each Monday on
Comcast Detroit, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, watch WHPR TV Network anywhere.
And take us along with you. Feedback.
And take us along with you. Thank you so much for staying tuned in to Feedback. a positive image production by Hood Research. The telephone number for Hood Research is area code 248-234-2371. Again, that's area code 248-234-2371. Follow us on Twitter. We have so many interesting things that are taking place, and we do a conference call each Saturday from 2 p.m. to 6, and we have guests like Attorney John Little, who is here with us this morning, to come on and share all of the urgent, important information. I can't underline those words enough. Urgent, important, whatever other words you want to fill in there. The information that you need to know. If it does not affect you at this time, it may be information that is needed for someone you know. And we encourage you to share the information that you learn here. Also, I'd like you to consider joining Hood Research. And we have a website, Facebook, Twitter, and I've given the telephone number. You can always Google Hood Research, and it will come up. It will give you the telephone numbers for the conference calls that we have on Saturday, which start at 2 p.m. So keep that in mind, write it down, tag it on your refrigerator, your closet door, so you can stay with Hood Research. I have a question for our guest. Now, Attorney John Little, we have had a lot of conversation in this city about demolition. But I remember years ago that when properties were demolished, if they had a basement, a lot of the I don't know, I guess you would say scrap, etc., was just dropped into the basement, as opposed to being carted away, which I thought was code, but nevertheless, it was dropped in the basement, and the basement was covered over. And you have to have X number of inches of dirt for grass, flowers, I suppose. Anyway, you were told if you purchased any property that had a structure demolished and the basement was used for excess debris, that you could not build on that lot. I don't know if it was because the city was selling the lots at that time for, I don't know, somewhere around $100, $200, $250 each. And if someone were to build on it, of course, they would stand to make a profit or something. But anyway, do you remember ever hearing about anything like that?
So I'm not familiar with the circumstances in the city where they were doing that. I've seen that many times throughout the state of Michigan where, and in fact, in a commercial setting, it's very common for buyers to check the environmental condition of the property. And there's a number of different stages or types of investigation that buyers do into the quality of the earth. And so I don't know what they were doing in the city of Detroit. It may be that they wouldn't allow you to build because they understood that the property was contaminated in some way. Now, more often than not, you can remediate that type of contamination, but that's very expensive.
Because the cost would be on your bill.
That's right. That's right. So if you're buying a private lot to build a home and you've got to dig out a basement and remediate that property, that would add a lot of cost that most people wouldn't want to endure.
You know, I find that interesting too, because let's just say you're in a residential area, house burns down, and as Steele said, what they do is they just take all the refuse as opposed to carting it away. They'll just dump it in there and throw it over. But, you know, I think, because I've worked in construction, one of the things that comes to mind is that you still have what would have been the existing water lines, and other utilities that were brought to that property. So those things are buried underground, and then, as you say, if they want to remediate, they'd have to go through a lot of work just to dig down in there. although the lines that are running from the city to that particular property still exist, although they may have been I'm sure they would have been capped off, gas lines, water lines, that type of thing. But then you just remove the potential, or even someone who has say, well, this is a nice area. I would like to be able to, buy this lot and build a home here. The fact that they'd have to go through all those extra costs in order to be able to build that property, even though the lines, the utility lines, et cetera, would be there, is discouraging in a way as well. Now, I wanted to follow up by asking, now, when you mentioned you did a property or properties in Iron Mountain, so your law firm, yours and Ms. Boylan, covers the whole state of Michigan.
That's right. For property tax foreclosures, we cover the entire state of Michigan.
Okay. And I was going to ask you again to repeat the information, because we always ask people to have pen and paper handy, but sometimes it's not handy. And I always keep mine handy because I have to jot notes as well.
I appreciate that very much. So your viewers and listeners can reach Attorney Kerry Boylan at 855-BOYLAN, which is BOYLAN.
Down 9 first.
855-926-9526. You're right, Theo. It's
9 Boylan.
855-9
Boylan.
Yeah. Good for you. God bless you. Or you can reach me, Attorney John Little, if I can remember my own phone number, at 248-809-1402. Attorney John Little at 248-809-1402. Thank you very much.
And always remember, if you lose the paper, you can Google. Just ask Google for John Little, Attorney John Little, and it will pop up for you.
Thanks, Theo.
You're welcome.
Now, I guess one of the things I think about is, again, the fact that people don't have an awareness of this type of redress of their particular grievances, and some either have had this happen or are in a current state of having this happen now. And one of the things you said earlier really struck me is that, okay, we deal with the city and the county in terms of property, and then Michigan, if they have some sort of interest in that property, let's just say, for instance, the Ambassador Bridge, which they're building now, that may not come under a city or county need in terms of the value of that property, but it may come under Michigan. But you said that's also a rare case that those type of things happen, because if the state of Michigan doesn't have an interest, let's say, for instance, for a highway or something like that, and they need that particular parcel or those parcels of land, then they're generally not going to even have any interest at all. So then that'll just revert back to either the city or the county to decide what they're going to do with that property. And I think Theo had asked a question before. I just want to be certain about it, where the city, and you answered, but I just want to be clear, the city can buy the property back from the county, but they give the county the right to collect the property taxes on it. And then if maybe the city has an interest in that parcel or parcels of land, the city can buy it. But I believe you said at that point I want to make sure I get this correct, that if there's any surplus funds, then whoever owned that property prior to that gets nothing out of the deal.
Right. So, I think what you just expressed is how complicated this system is.
Yes.
And it's a Venn diagram that's very difficult for most people to follow. And I'm certainly not doing justice to the process, but what I would say is this, that you pay your property taxes to your local municipality. So I'm just going to use the city of Detroit as an example. You pay your property taxes to the city of Detroit. If you fail to pay them, eventually they revert to Wayne County to collect those taxes. And if you fail to pay taxes for a period of 3 years, or any portion of the taxes for 3 years, so if you have unpaid taxes that are 3 years old, Wayne County will foreclose on your property and take it from you in order to pay the past due unpaid property taxes. when they take the property, they do it by filing a lawsuit, and they foreclose through that lawsuit, and then they have the property to do something with it. The statute in the state of Michigan says that the state of Michigan can come in and pay the county the amount that's owed on taxes and take the property to use in whatever fashion the state wants to. What I suggested to you is that that doesn't happen very often. The state of Michigan and lots of government entities take property, but they generally do it through eminent domain and pay the property owners just compensation. It's unusual for the state of Michigan to be picking properties out of a tax foreclosure because those are basically random, so you just don't see it very often. However, it's not random for the city of Detroit. The city of Detroit wants to deal with blight, has lots of interests in keeping property. So, for example, I am aware of a case where the business owner didn't realize his property taxes weren't being paid. It was foreclosed by the county of Wayne, and the state of Michigan didn't exercise its right to come take the property, but the city of Detroit did. So the property was transferred to the city of Detroit for the amount of money that this person, this business owner, owed for unpaid property taxes. Now, that is a small fraction of what his commercial building is worth. So if it had sold at auction, if neither the city of Detroit or the state of Michigan had exercised their right to take the property, it would have sold at an auction, and some investor would have bought it, and this individual would have been entitled to some surplus funds in all likelihood. But because it didn't go to auction, because it was just simply transferred to the city of Detroit for the amount of taxes that were paid, so the treasurer didn't get any excess money, any surplus funds, the city of Detroit is now in a position where it owns a building that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or in excess of $100,000, that it paid pennies to take. And you have a situation where the property owner is saying, I didn't know, I'll pay you every dime that I owe in taxes. Lump sum, check, right now, I'll pay you. And our government is saying, no, because this is our windfall. And that's what Carrie and I find so offensive.
We're fighting for.
And that's why we're fighting for homeowners and property owners, because that's not right.
Wow.
Now, I used to, well, I still know the guy, but he sold me my first home, and he would go down to, I want to say, and you can help me with this, Theo, I believe it was the 13th floor where they have the auditorium at, Coleman Young Municipal. Okay, and I believe every Wednesday or Thursday they would have, because I was interested in properties, and so I'm getting into investors and speculators and saying this, that they would give you a list of properties, and they were for auction, and they give you the amount, I guess whatever the starting bid was, and they had them all over, basically all over Wayne County. So, and I made it a point to go and, you know, just out of curiosity, I wanted to learn a little bit about the game, even if I wasn't going to be in it. I wanted to know how the rules, regulations, how it operated. But now my question is, okay, when you were talking about someone may have a vacant lot, and then they may have an adjoining property that does have a residence on it. Is there kind of person, because I believe you used to be able to do this in the past, and I'm not sure, again, you know, I'm very much a neophyte when it comes to this kind of thing, but I believe there was a time that you could go down to the City of Detroit Property Tax Division, and you could actually, did they, to your knowledge, offer like a list of properties or something that you know, speculator investor may be interested in, and again, let's say the homeowner or the lot owner, maybe they have a home that they used to rent, you know, homes that they used to rent, and then they just didn't really keep up with the, you know, the information. So to your knowledge, do they still have an area? I mean, we're in COVID-19 now, so I don't know how many of those offices may be open. I believe it was on the first floor of the Coleman Young Municipal Center, but do they still have that type of thing where someone who's interested in terms of being an investor or speculator go down there, get a list of different properties throughout Wayne County, and then pursue them, you know, if they find that to their needs?
Yeah, so those auctions are being held by the Sheriff's Department, and they're generally mortgage foreclosures. So when a mortgage company forecloses again, they can do that through the courts, or they can do that by a process called advertisement. And when they do it by advertisement, they have these auctions through the Sheriff's Department, and that they do hold those, just as you were talking about, and you generally can go down and get a list of all the properties that are going to be available for auction that week. And a lot of speculators, investors also subscribe to those legal news that you were talking about, Theo. So they can see in advance, a long time in advance, what properties are going to be sold. And I have lots of clients that call and say, I learned about my foreclosure because someone showed up at my door and said, I'd like to buy your house before it goes into foreclosure.
You know, there are signs, they tell me, being just crude handmade signs stuck in the ground around the city that say something like, "We buy ugly homes," and then call whatever the number is. And there was one in my neighborhood, but we had it torn down. Is that illegal, do you know?
No, I don't know anything that would prohibit that or make that illegal.
Unless it's on private property, right?
You're right. What I will say is that, you know, all of these investors and speculators are making a lot of money. And one of the reasons that they're able to make a lot of money is because, in my opinion anyway, we're not doing enough to support homeowners and property owners. In California, for example, you can't foreclose for property taxes until someone is 5 years delinquent on their taxes. In Michigan, it's 3. And that may seem like an insignificant difference, but if you're going through a difficult financial time, you know, an extra couple of years might make the difference for you. And, you know, what's our philosophy? Where are our goals?
Yeah,
what are we trying to achieve?
I think it was 5 years here at one time, and then it was reduced. And I'm sure some people who knew it was 5 years didn't know it had been reduced. But there's a man, I don't believe he lives in the city, but he owed $1 million and the city forgave him. I thought that was unforgivable, criminal, but anyway. They did it, but he's an investor. So that was how that went. I
had a client who basically didn't invest in the stock market, didn't invest in 401ks. He invested in properties as his retirement, and he lost a duplex in Oakland County foreclosure, and for pennies on the dollar, and he probably would have been eligible for an exemption of the taxes that that caused that foreclosure. But people don't know that they're entitled to exemptions under some circumstances. They don't know how to apply for them. I just don't think we're doing enough to help. Do you at your office do that, help people apply for exemptions? So we don't actually charge and have clients where we're assisting in that way, because candidly, folks who are in that position wouldn't be able to afford our assistance. But I certainly would be happy to take a call from somebody who needed help with that and point them in the right direction and get them started.
Okay, yeah, that I'm sure there are some people within this community who don't even know they could be exempted from their property tax. And what you were saying?
Now, you know, I'm just curious.
I heard you.
Heard me thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering if the, let's just say the county treasurer's office, if they have something, well, like you said, sometimes there's an interest in not acknowledging that a person, you know, is at a point where, you know, and as you said, they have a load anyway, and they're trying to manage a lot of things, and maybe some smaller things just kind of fall through the cracks. And the person themselves, you know, somebody who's out there working maybe a couple of jobs or something like that, you know, when you get into the legalese and certain little things, people, just the common average everyday citizen just doesn't know, for one thing, because it's not something that just comes up on a regular basis, like paying a bill every month or something like that. So it's not just a part of their regular life or their routine, but it still is a factor of their life. So I guess what I'm wondering is if the Wayne County Treasurer has any treasurer, I'm just saying Wayne County, but any treasurer has something set up, like perhaps a site where a person could actually go in, input certain information, because I've heard of people not receiving tax bills. I listen to a lot of talk radio, so I come across a lot of interesting comments made by callers, but if there's something that was set up where a person could actually do their own personal minor investigation to kind of see what their status is.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and I actually had a client who lost their property in a tax foreclosure. They were one of those people that didn't realize they weren't getting all of the taxes paid on the property. It wasn't a financial hardship, it was just a misunderstanding. There really isn't right now a general mechanism for people to find out that information. They're going to have to contact their local treasurer, their city, and then they can get conflicting information. So it can be very difficult. Yeah. But the reason I brought up this client is that when he went through this, he said to himself, I've got to do something so that I can help people know what's going on in their situation. And something like that would be immensely helpful. What happens now is that when a treasurer forecloses, they send out notices to the homeowners, property owners, that there's going to be, and this is required under the General Property Tax Act, that there's going to be something called a show cause hearing and then also a foreclosure hearing. The show cause hearing is with the treasurer or the foreclosing governmental entity, and the foreclosure hearing is with the judge who's hearing the lawsuit to foreclose these properties. And that is generally a property owner's opportunity to talk about their circumstances with somebody and try to find some resolution short of foreclosure. But it's very common for a variety of reasons for people not to go to those show cause hearings or foreclosure hearings. And one example I'll give you is that I've had lots of clients that entered into payment plans with the treasurers. And the payment plans would say you have to make a lump sum payment at the beginning of this amount, and then you have to make monthly payments of another amount. And they would miss one of those monthly payments, and the treasurers would foreclose on their property. And they believed that as long as they made up that payment in the next month or paid off the payment plan over the course of the 12 months that it existed, that they would be okay. And so they would make payments until the treasurer would say, sorry, you don't own the property anymore. So it's even when you think you're talking to the right people and getting the right information, you may need a lawyer.
Oh, wow. Now, there is something called a kiosk, which is at a few locations. And at the kiosk, you can pay your utility bills and your tax bill. There's one such kiosk. Now they've added the census. There's a kiosk for that as well. And the one in the community I'm aware of is on Grand River, Wyoming at the Dabo Center. But there are other locations where they have a kiosk set up so that you can do that. And here recently, the advertisement by the Wayne County clerk is they're not doing foreclosures at this time. But as soon as the governor says, it's over, it's open, it's like, hey, guess what? You are really under the gun, as they say. I don't know where they get all these sayings from. But anyway,
down to our last minute and a half.
Oh my God, a minute and a half. Anyway, you could call him and make an appointment to go. They are back in session, if we should say it like that, at the Wayne County Treasurer's location, which is at 400 Monroe in Greektown. Now, being down to the last hour, minute, 1.5, I always say it's not necessary for you to know everything. What is necessary is for you to know how to find what you need when you need it. And we at Hood Research seek out as much information as we can, as you have seen here this morning with Attorney John Little, so that we can all have more information to help us make better informed decisions. Speedy.
Two things. First, as I always say, if you want to be nothing, do nothing. But the only problem with doing nothing is you never know when you're finished. And I want to allow our guest, Attorney Little, to give us his contact information and Ms. Boylan's once more.
Thank you very much, and I'm going to get it right this time. So you can contact Attorney Carrie Boylan at 855-9-BOYLAN. That's BOYLAN. 855-926-9526. Or you can contact me, Attorney John Little, at 248-809-1402.
And if you lose that paper, you just Google. That's what you do. You Google and ask for Attorney John Little or Attorney Carrie Boylan. And thank you all for staying tuned today. And we want you to tune in again next week. Peace.
Feedback. Hi, this is Theo Broughton,
And I am Thabiti Mpinda,
inviting you to join us each Monday at 9 a.m. for Feedback.
a positive image production by Hood Research.
Encourage others to tune in each Monday on
Comcast Detroit, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, watch WHPR TV Network anywhere.
and take us along with you. Feedback.
You're watching Detroit's own WHPR TV. Detroit Live.
Hi, this is Thabiti Mpinda from the Feedback Program. You can watch me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on WHPR TV Now app. Download our free app at WHPR TV Now.
Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern.